Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm James of Best Thriller Books, and I appreciate you attending the leading podcasters panel of the Big Con. That's selling these guys short. These guys would be Eric Bishop, Terrence McCauley, and Travis Davis. They're also award-winning authors. We'll go through each one of them real quick for an intro. I think most of you are familiar with them. Eric is the author of the Bodyman series and the Omega series. He's the host of Tale of Two Scribes. Travis is the author of historical fiction books. War on the Porch just came out, so please grab that if you can, as well as fiction, as well as thriller books. His podcast is, I'm going to say this wrong, Author Eke, and Terrence McCauley. He's a best-selling author of Westerns, thrillers, and crime novels, more than 25 books, and the host of Spies, Lies, and Private Eyes. So the ways this is going to work is for the first 30 minutes, I'm going to throw a few questions at them, let them, throw them around and give a little to each one another, I'm sure, knowing these guys. And then the second half is going to be a Q&A. So at any point during this, if in the chat you've got a question, throw it in the chat. I'll make sure I monitor it as things are going on. When it comes to the Q&A, I'll call you. If you can have your camera on and your microphone on, you'll get pulled up so you can answer the question or ask the question, and hopefully the panel will be able to ask it. All right. So without further ado, let's bring in the panel, which once again is Eric Bishop, Travis Davis, and Terrence McCauley.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Hey, everybody, it's Travis.
All right.
There we are.
Got everybody up here. Perfect. Going seamlessly so far.
There we go.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for joining. And let's get right into it. So I'll go on my screen. I'll ask a question. If we can go Travis, Terrence, and Eric for the first question. And feel free to go back and forth with one another if you want. But why did you start podcasting? And Travis can go first, please.
Well, I've only been writing about 3 years, and I wrote my first book, Flames of Deception, and I thought to myself, I don't know anything about writing, anything about publishing a book, anything about the industry itself. I didn't really know any authors at all. So I said, what was a better way was to have a podcast where I could get some authors on there, whether they're, indie authors, established authors, whatever, I don't care what genre, and be able to bring them in and talk to them and get information from them, because I know that then that might help somebody else. I think everybody has a story, and I wanted to be able to help and get that out. That's one reason why I did it. And I met a lot of great people. Two of the folks that are on here right now with me. So that's just for me to be better at my trade craft and to help other people.
How about you, Terrence?
Well, for me, I wound up being asked to start a podcast by Pam Stack, who's part of the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. She and I knew each other for many years before she invited me to start podcasting. We knew each other from a lot of different writers' conferences, and she asked me, you're always talking to people, you know an awful lot of people, you're always asking questions. How about doing that as part of the radio network? So I started doing it about 3 years ago, and it's been a wonderful entree, to echo what Travis said about just being able to meet so many different authors that I've admired for so long and didn't really get a chance to talk with very much, and also explore different types of books that I might not otherwise have read because of people being guests on my podcast. So it's been a really great outlet for me to learn more about writing in general and to help my audience find authors they might not otherwise have met.
Unlike my friend Travis and Terrence, they didn't mention the fact that I thought we were promised Joe Rogan money when we started podcasting. So I was
Right.
like, hey, I'll take 100 million for 4 years to just talk because I never shut up anyways.
Right.
Um, I will say that's not exactly how it happens. And it doesn't work that way. So no.
Oh,
So I was part of a podcast back in 2019, 2020. Um, it was one of the lower parts of my life. I was going through a divorce. So it was a blessing and it was a curse at the same time. So it was something that distracted me from what I was going through. But on the flip side, it gave me an excuse to run away what I was going through. So I had a short lifespan. I think I did it for maybe 6 months, but I enjoyed like talking to authors in the process. So fast forward to The Body Man coming out. I got invited on a podcast called Spear Talk, John Guarnieri, and we struck up a friendship, started working on some projects together. And then fast forward like 2 years later, he was talking about growing the brand. And we talked all the time. And he said, any interest to get back in the podcast world? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I would like to. I kind of have unfinished business. So I spent a lot of time kind of thinking how I want to structure it, what I want to do, came up with a lot of different name ideas, gave John a list, and he was like, A Tale of Two Scribes. That's the one that jumps out. So yeah, I dived in. I think it was January-ish or so of 2024 started.
so I'll have to say something. So the benefit of having a podcast, having authors on it. So up until I talked to Terrence, I only wanted to write thrillers.
Hmm.
Right.
And during my conversation with him, the first time I was talking to him, he wrote a book about Bellawood, which is a World War I battle with the Marine Corps and a historical fiction. I go, man, I love that stuff. So right after I had the podcast with Terrence, I started writing 104.
Wow.
So
Oh.
that's the kind of the sparks that the other authors can give you that you might want to be able to nurture is amazing.
Right. Yeah. And you know what? Authors in general usually love to talk about what they're writing about, especially, if it's going to be coming to market pretty soon. But also, I think the one thing that all three of us have in common is that we don't just have people on to shill their books. We have them on and encourage them to talk about more than that, about how they became writers and how they got the idea to write the book that they're currently talking about and where it fits in their writing career. And that I think is the reason why we keep doing it after the initial 6 months or so.
Yeah, I agree with that. The other thing too, for my part of my story is I back in 17, 18, 19, I attended conferences, and just with everything changing in life, just can't seem to make one. Whether it's work commitment, my custody with my kids, I won't miss time with them to go to hang out with writers as much as I love it. So
Right.
the podcast really kind of opened up that door again of having actually much more regular conversations with authors than once a year at a conference. So it allowed me kind of stay in and just have that kind of really fellowship between other creative types because I'm sure everyone listening and Terrence and Travis would agree, our craft is very much in our head and what we do on our own. We don't really have, we might have a support system, of course, but it's really on us to craft a story.
Mm-hmm.
So, and a lot of times family and friends don't understand what we do. They're not storytellers. So they're like, oh, how could you write a book? Or why do you write a book? So to have that connection with fellow writers, even if you don't connect with them necessarily on a personal level, you connect with them in the sense of the craft. And so they become part of your tribe.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
You
Yeah.
guys hit on it a little bit with the follow-ups that you just had, but what are some of the things that you've learned, positive or negative? Learn can also include some of the pitfalls of podcasting. And once again, if we can go around the horn with Travis and Terrence and Eric.
Yeah, so some of the pitfalls is you have to pay for the subscription services. So, uh, that's really, I think, the only pitfall. It does take some time to be able to, out of your normal routine, to be able to edit and social media and get it out there and everything. I think that those are probably the only pitfalls. What I've learned is that by talking to Eric, I learned how to self-publish a book,
Mm-hmm.
and that to me that's something that I wanted to do, is self-publish
Mhm.
my stuff. So I think that really I haven't found any pitfalls. The benefits are just astronomical. I can email Terrence, I can email Eric, I can email a lot of folks. Say, hey, what about this? Then they also become your alpha and beta readers,
Right.
and they'll provide that honest feedback to you. So
Yeah.
you're like Eric said, you're building a tribe, right? You're building a whole um, partnership ecosystem, because we're not competing against one another.
No.
I'm not competing against Terrence. I'm not
Mhm.
competing against Eric. I'm not competing against anybody. People read more than one book, and people like to read more than one genre. So it's just to be able to, and then we're all in our success. We all relish it. We all savor it together,
Mhm.
which is very, very nice. So I've kind of suspended my podcast because moving. I'll get started back up the first of the year, which I'm excited about. But I think that's because I like to talk to people and I like to talk. My wife says I've never met a stranger, so I
Right.
figure, yeah.
Right. Especially because writing is such a solitary endeavor. And yeah, you do have to bring in people into it at some point. But usually in the nation stages, it's just us and our thoughts. And as Eric said earlier, staying in our own head.
Mhm.
For me, though, the pitfalls of podcasting, I think people have to understand that there is a cost involved for most of it. I don't have a sponsor. I don't think Travis does. I don't think Eric does. And so it does cost money to do this, and if it isn't money in terms of subscriptions and stuff, you're definitely paying somebody to do the editing for you, like I do. I have a producer. She's wonderful. She's, she makes sure that the flow, the each episode flows well, but it is a cost, and it's something to consider, especially when times are tough. But monetary costs aside, to echo Travis's point, it's a great way to just stay fresh and get new perspectives on what we love to do.
Yeah, I agree. So my experience is a little bit different from Travis and Terrence, and probably the reason I even do a podcast is when John approached me about joining the Spear Talk family. We had, a lot of in-depth conversations about it, and I had initial concern of that exactly thing because I was through my divorce and life had settled down, but I have two little kids or younger kids. So it's like, okay, do I want to spend money on a Zoom subscription? And do I want to spend money on this and that? And fortunately, with coming with Spear Talk, there's no cost for me. I don't pay anything. John takes care of the guy that does the edits. I literally film and so guys, you're gonna hate me. I'm sorry. I film a podcast. I Dropbox it to a guy that's in South America. I tell him like, here's the write-up of what I want to say, do blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing I do is put a social media post, and then I just go do the next one. So it was a great, it was like almost like, why would you not do this? Because I don't have to invest 6, 7 hours doing editing. I don't have to pay for this service. It doesn't pay anything either. I've had
Right.
people ask me that before, and I'm open about that. I'm like, I don't get a dime. I hope it helps sell some books.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know that it
Yeah.
sells as many as I would have liked when I started doing it, but that's not the purpose of it for me. The purpose of it is to, Terrence has been on the program, Travis has been on as guests. Travis
Mm-hmm.
is going to come back on again. I'm going to try to get him on soon. I've kind of backed off a little bit just the last couple months with so much going on. I kind of backed down to two a month, and I might stick with that for a while. But the positives really are that like just echoing both of them, the interactions with the authors, the genuine friendships you end up forming with authors is pretty powerful thing. The pitfalls are, I think, the cost for a lot of people because there is for typically I'm the exception. Typically, there's a cost, and also other factor that a lot of people don't think about sometimes is the time factor, and that's the one non-renewable thing we have in our life. So you gotta decide, do you want to spend time filming a podcast and do you want to spend time talking to someone for an hour? That
Right.
can be, it's normally a positive. But if you have one that's a stinker, then it can quickly be a negative when you're like, really,
Yeah.
I've just spent an hour talking to this person. It's like, oh my goodness, help me.
And one word answers too. You're trying to drag it out of them. It's
Pull it sometimes, pull it. And unfortunately, and you guys will smile and nod and not make too nasty comments of, I cannot shut up. I mean, I can talk all day, but that's not what the purpose of the podcast is. It's to get the guests to say stuff. And
Yeah.
sometimes you're just like, I'm gonna have to tell some stories here. I don't know what else to
Yeah.
do. So
Yeah.
Now, I don't know, James, if this is one of the questions that you were going to ask us, but could anybody describe the worst guests that you've had without naming names, but just a general idea of what happened?
Yeah, I interviewed a guy. And I looked at his book and looked at his background, and on the interview, I'm like, man, this guy's out there. I mean, like out there. And I was
Mhm.
like, can I even put this? We got to even put it out. I did, but I was like, oh, people don't think that I'm, uh, it was enjoyable, but some of the things, shapes and sizes and intersection of spiritual, not spirituality, but
Right.
geo something. I
Mysticism.
was yeah, I was like, well, I'm gonna have to take a class in that or something.
Yeah.
So, but then you get some people that are pretty funny. You get some people that are, I think authors, except I think us three are some are and some others are introverted.
Right.
Right.
So it's hard to get them to talk. You have to find something that interests them, and
Mhm.
then that can start the conversation. If not, you're right. You're gonna talk more than your guest was. It's not the point of the show.
Yeah.
Is to promote them, to get their name out is the main goal. But yeah, there's some. I was like, whoa, I need to think about this. But I did
Yeah.
it because I had them on. They took the time. I took the time. I did
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. For me, I wound up having two interesting ones. That's why I don't show the video of my podcast, is because one of my guests was having an episode and did the interview from under a blanket fort that they had built for themselves, and the other person did it from their car before they were to surrender themselves to the county sheriff. So I figured, you know what, I'll just stick with the audio version of it, and that's going to be good enough for everybody.
Man, I didn't know you did cops. That's pretty cool. I'm gonna have to watch that. I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah, but that's why I figured audio is just safer that way, and then we don't have to worry about props or lighting or cameras and stuff like that, because people do the interviews where they can sometimes.
So
Yeah.
Travis, let's alternate days. Which when we're sending them bad boys audio
Yeah.
audio file.
Next time I get hey, I'd like to interview. So, hey, here are the questions. Are you a felon uh, or are you hunted down and you can't do it out of a blanket fort unless you're on the Big Bang Theory?
Do you make forts in your living room to do podcasts? I mean, I used to love doing them as a kid. I haven't done many as an adult though. So,
No,
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 no.
no, not. It's
um,
been a while.
I've had just a hand. I've had none that were like, I can't air this. I've had several that it was just awkward because I couldn't really pull much out of them, that I had to do more filler, I thought, which again, as you said, Terrence, I think it there's definitely a percentage, and it's not a small one, of authors that are definitely introverts. And I
Mhm.
get that, and I respect that. I'm not, but I understand the personality type.
Yeah.
And I also understand you've got to promote books. So maybe your publicist gets you to come on A Tale of Two Scribes or whatever, however it works out that you're on, one of our podcasts. But yeah, it can definitely be challenging. I've had a handful where I was glad when it was done. They were short, probably shorter than I normally would have done. And I knew I would probably never rewatch that. And I wouldn't push people to it either. I wouldn't be like, you gotta watch this one. I was kind of like, we'll just put this one out because they spent their time. But
Right.
I don't think I'm going to be heavily promoting this one just because I think people would watch it and be like, well, that's
Yeah,
awkward. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
All right, so
James,
we've gotten the broad idea of some of the not the best podcast guests that you've had, but if somebody wants to be a guest on your show, what's your process for that? And once again, we'll record this and people will be able to view it and see it and buy it afterwards. So you might be able to snag one or two guests from folks that are going to see it. I know we've got some authors on this call as well. So how would somebody approach you to be a guest?
Yeah, so mine's suspended, but you can reach me at Travis at randomthoughts.llc. or my social media, definitely reach out to me and we can get it scheduled for next year. Until that time, I do a little segment every weekend. It's called Book and a Beer. So if you have a book that you would like me to pair it with a beer, it's, I do about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes. Reach out to me and definitely get you on there. I may even dress up as part of whatever the book is about, or I'll try to theme it and everything. So it gets really cool. But yeah, so right at the first of the year, we can start booking these, and I look forward to talking to everybody. Highly recommend it going on a podcast.
Definitely. Yeah. For me, I'll get requests sometimes from publicists. Often a lot of requests come directly from the authors themselves. And if I think that it's something that's going to appeal to my readers, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, as long as there's some kind of intrigue or a lie involved in it, I'll have them on. And I try to keep it as broad as possible, because I like to get as much variety for my audience as possible. Variety of guests, variety of different points of view, facts versus nonfiction versus novels. So the best way to get in touch with me to be a guest is through my website, TerrenceMcCauley.com. That's 2 R's and all E's, Macaulay, McCauley.com. And let me know what you're working on and when you might be able to be on the show. That's always the best way to get in touch with me.
So my son's a freshman in college, so if you contribute to his GoFundMe page, you get top of the list on the podcast. No, I'm completely kidding. I would, man, I would hate if people had to pay to go on a podcast. I guess that probably is somewhere out there, but I think generally speaking, that's better be frowned upon. Very similar processes as Terrence and Travis. A lot of times I just reach out to people that I'm interested in. Again, that kind of circles back to what I was talking about before. If I'm going to spend an hour talking to someone, I guess it might sound selfish, but I want to enjoy talking to them, and I want my audience to enjoy talking to them more. But I got to sit there for an hour, so a lot of times will be like, that I'll just see someone on social media, an author, no matter what they write. I don't care about the genre or fiction, nonfiction. I filmed an episode. I hadn't filmed in like a month since I was in Spain earlier last month. But I had a lady on that did a nonfiction book that talked about mental health issues and stuff. And one of my favorite episodes I've done in a while. I just enjoyed, and totally different from what I've filmed in quite a while, actually. So stuff like that, I like to just find interesting people to talk to. That's the purpose of the podcast for me. Sometimes publicists do reach out to me, and then I'll just basically, if I don't know who the author is, I'll go look at their social media profiles or see if I can find a video of them on YouTube and just watch a couple minutes and think, okay, is this person going to be engaging for the audience? Am I going to enjoy talking to them for an hour? And then, yeah, that's mainly it. And then I'll have authors sometimes reach out to me. I've had some, and some I don't respond to, or I'll respond, but some I don't bring on, and some I will. Again, it just comes down to, do I want to spend an hour? Because mine normally ends up being about an hour program. I've gone longer and I've gone a little bit shorter, but if anything, it ends up going longer. So I always kind of look at through that lens of, do I want to spend time talking to this person? And is my audience going to actually sit there for an hour and listen? Or are they going to be, after about 2 minutes, be like, check off, go to the next one? So
Right.
So if somebody came to you guys and said, "Hey, I know you're a podcaster. I'm thinking about doing a podcast," what counsel would you give them? And why don't we start with just the number one point that you'd give them? And if there is a secondary one that isn't redundant, we can come back to it. So once again, Travis, Terrence, then Eric, if we could, please.
I would find the platform, look around the platform that you want to put it on, make it the easiest possible, the one to record and edit. That's key. And pick a theme or find something that really interests you to be able to talk about it, and start it like that, so you don't get kind of bummed out by, I really would talk about this for mine, historical fiction, right? I like to talk about that, or history and things like that. So I would really start with that, and then move forward into different genres and different, ways to be able to talk to people and be comfortable talking in front of the camera, even though it may not even be on, and have some background in that individual, and let them ask you questions too, because that's part of the give and take of the whole thing, and that's the whole nurturing each other.
Yeah. For me, it would be a couple of things. The first one being make sure that you have a good microphone. And even if it's not a very expensive one, make sure you have a place where you're comfortable doing this kind of thing all the time. Because if it's inconsistent, people are going to feel that when they listen to it or watch it.
Yep.
I know I kind of dogged the technical part of my podcast early on. I just did it through earphones, and it didn't really sound as good as it could. But then I broke down. I invested in a decent microphone, and that has helped. The other thing is to like 1A of the same point is give yourself permission to build your audience. Don't expect to get 1,000 views on your first podcast. Stick with it. Do it for a couple of months at the very least, and see if you can find an audience and also find your own voice based on the kind of podcast you want to tell. It takes that long usually to figure out what you want to do.
Yeah, good point. I joked early on about the Joe Rogan money and all that, but the podcast and writing I have a similar philosophy with. Do it because you love the craft, whether it's writing a book or whether it's talking to people. Because if you're going into podcasting, in any part of your brain is thinking, I'm going to podcasting because I'm going to be the Joe Rogan or I'm going to make the money. Same thing with if you're going into writing and thinking, I'm going to be the Jack Carr or the Brad Thor or Sean Grisham, whatever.
Yeah.
I always tell people, you can be. That is one thing you need to keep and always believe you can be. But there's a extreme high possibility you are not going to be that person. Whether it's a podcaster, you're not going to be Joe Rogan. If you're a writer, you're not going to be Jack Carr. Accept that from the start. So get in there with pure intentions of why you want to start it. And then if you can bust your butt, if things can, luck is where opportunity meets preparation.
Right.
If you can get lucky in that regard and you make money doing it, whether it's writing books or doing podcasting, God bless you. You're the exception to the rule. Good job. But don't have that be your sole focus, or you're probably going to resent podcasting or writing books.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I can't tell you how many men and women I've encountered over the last several years who have a DD-214 in their history. And they said, I'm going to be the next Jack Carr. And I always tell them, you're probably not, because Jack was lightning in a bottle. I know you got experience. It's got nothing to do with what you accomplished in uniform. He just hit at the right time and took off and has made the most of every opportunity he's had. I'm sure he's made mistakes along the way, but that's lightning in a bottle. You're not going to get that every time. Same thing with any kind of favorite podcast that you happen to listen to. It takes time to build an audience, and not even Joe Rogan was Joe Rogan from day one. So
no, absolutely not. No, yeah, he started, I think, in his spare bedroom in his house for several years, and then finally got a studio, and then finally became who he was. But that took 10 plus years before he became a household name. So, yeah, the lightning in the bottle with anything, it happens, but it's a lightning in a bottle for a reason because it doesn't happen to very many people. And so just don't hang your head. And I'm one of those ones that when I wrote my first book in 2014, I thought I'd be the lightning in the bottle.
Yeah.
Guess what? I wasn't. So learned a good lesson.
Yeah, it's important too when your podcast build a brand, right? They say build a brand, and what is a brand? It's not you; it's around what you do. It's how you do it. It's how people recognize who you are.
Yep.
So building your brand is important, and then social media. You got to get it out. What's the best way to do? Is it YouTube? Is it TikTok? Is it Instagram? You got these little 1 minute clips to put the bite, right? You want somebody to bite at that to go to the podcast. And some of your podcasts will have more views than others. That's not nothing, or how many subscribers that you have. It's just you got to be diligent, and it's key to be consistent, right? That's the social media thing. You have to be consistent in putting content out there for it to pick up on your algorithm, pick you up that you're not a one time, when you're doing something that goes viral, but you're doing it consistently. So, there's some certain things and there's products that'll help you out there to schedule things in advance. And we all use those, but I would, get the plan, work a plan. Because if it's not a plan, you don't have a plan, it's just a dream. So have a plan, work the plan, refine the plan, and continue moving.
All right. I think that the most part covers the first part where I'm asking the guys, the panel questions. Now Colleen, who's been great in managing this call, if Colleen can pull up John Brooks as part of the Q&A section and let John ask his question.
Hey guys, thanks for doing this. Are there any podcasts that the three of you enjoy listening to?
For me, I don't necessarily listen to that many podcasts. I mean, I watch a lot of stuff on YouTube. So one of them, I think it's considered a podcast, is called America's Untold Stories. And that is a great one because it's a conversation between someone who does an awful lot of research and someone who is the host, and they play off each other. And I've learned an awful lot from that. All three of us here, I think, do a solo podcast. So for me, I try to, my interviewing style was really inspired by, and I'm going to take a lot of stuff for this, Larry King, because he said he never prepared beforehand. He would always just have a conversation with the person, and the bookers would book it, and he would just actively listen and ask questions. And that's why he was such a great interviewer. So those are the two, I would say, influences on me when I'm doing my podcasts.
I wanted
Yeah,
to add to that real quick. I did a podcast last night, so I have this person's bio here. I do it every time I do a podcast, even if I know the person. 98% of the time, I never look at that piece of paper. That piece of paper is there because I don't come up with questions ahead of time. That piece of paper is there in case A, I forget their name or forget the last book they did or whatever, or the book that they're promoting. But if I get one of these, like, the people just aren't receptive to talk, I can quickly kind of glance and get a couple little things to go, well, tell me about that time in Pennsylvania when your bio says you jumped off a bridge,
Yep.
because I wish I could jump off one right now, but no. Um, so for me, yeah, I watch a lot of YouTube clips. I do listen to a lot of Rogan, actually. Probably the most consistent one I listen to is Rogan, but it's very, um, not happenstance. It just depends who he's speaking to. So I'll start most of his episodes, but there's some of them I might do 5 minutes, and they're 3 hours. So if you go through a Rogan one and you're enjoying it, you're committed to like 2 to 3 hours of your life.
Yep.
Most people I don't want to listen to for 2 or 3 hours. So for his, it's very much if he comes out with 10 episodes or however many in a month, I might watch all the way through two of them, three maybe. I'll start all of them probably or most of them, but and then yeah, the rest of them, I listen to a lot of comedians. I don't really do much book podcasts, and that's nothing against. I have a book podcast. I think that's why, because it's like I already live in that. Sometimes once or twice a week, and when I was filming a bunch of episodes, I don't want to then like spend my time because I have a regular day job and I don't listen to any podcasts at night. I'm normally writing or with my kids. So yeah, so it just kind of varies, but a lot of YouTube. I watch a lot of stuff on YouTube mainly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say so. I watch a lot of things to be able to help. If I'm writing a book or planning on writing a book, I don't outline. I'm a pantser, what they call. I just write whatever in my head. Um, so I might watch something on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram or listen to a podcast if it's history related or World War I or what's going on, or watch a movie. Oh, those are some great scenes. Or get a book and look at a book of a picture of a battle, and then I'm writing that battle out how I think it would go. So I do like listening to them. Sometimes the writing podcast I listen to just simply from the perspective of listening to other authors and how they do their craft and stuff. Yep.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, John.
Yep.
Thanks, John. Good to see you. Say hi to Bridget.
Will do.
All right. Colleen, if we could pull up and if we can keep the three panelists on screen, that'd be awesome. If we could pull up Scott Bell. And Scott, if you can turn your camera on, if you don't want to, that's fine. And you've unmuted your mic. That's good. All right.
Yeah,
And this seems to be an author question as much as a podcast question, yeah?
Yeah, and well, first of all, I want to say, I feel seen that you're describing this guest from hell. So now I've been triggered. So now I know better. All right.
Wasn't
Now I know
you,
what not to do.
Scott.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Scott
You
was
say
on my
that now.
podcast.
You say that now.
Come
All
out of the
right.
blanket fort.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, so yeah, it is more of and it's kind of a podcaster question too, because the corollary to my question. First of all, the question is, what's the biggest key to success? Is it writing ability or marketing ability? And the corollary to that question is, how much time do you spend marketing your books versus marketing your podcast? So, kind of a two-part question.
I like to spend an hour a day marketing my podcast. I market it when I have an episode and I put it out. That's the extent of the marketing that I do from a podcast perspective. The book I'll do like an hour or so marketing, and that is like throwing crap against the wall and see what's going to stick sometimes. And when something sticks, redo it. Rinse and repeat. Uh, that's key is the marketing, but you've got to market. And I thought when I wrote my first book, like everybody gonna buy it, and I'm like, nobody bought it. So then you got to find the niche of what. The thing is that the big five publishers and other publishers have program readers on what to read,
Hmm.
right? So they won't get out of a genre. They won't escape out of something else to read because they're already waiting for something else from the other author to come out. So, and I think that's a detriment to sometimes indie authors and things because we've got to be able to get them out, readers out of their comfort zone, to read something that they enjoy. And that's the key is it has to be enjoyable to read. So marketing is key. Market yourself, market your brand, market other authors. It's almost symbiotic in a relationship.
Yep.
Yeah, for me, I think the key to any of this success is that the book has to be the best you could possibly make it. And that
Yeah.
means an investment in time. That means an investment sometimes in money there too, because just like a podcast needs to have someone, whether it's the host or somebody else who knows how to produce it and edit it properly, your manuscript also has to be edited and strong as possible too. So that sometimes that means not using AI to edit it. You have to hire somebody who's a proofreader, who's a professional editor to help you get to that next step so that it is ready for the marketplace whenever you are ready to send it out. In terms of marketing myself, I will do that probably about 2 or 3 hours a week. But for the podcast, I found that no matter how much I market it, no matter how much I share it on social media, there's still going to be a cap on who it is, that on how many people I reach. So I don't spend an awful lot of time marketing the podcast, but I do try to market my books and other people's books as much as possible because what Travis said is right. It is like a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, it's a great question, Scott. So it's kind of like the chicken and the egg question as well, because if you don't write a good book, how are you going to market it? But you can market a crappy book, and if your marketing's really good, people will buy it. I think writing the good book is the most important thing, but marketing, as you know, as an author yourself, Scott, you've got to have that marketing side. Either you're doing it or you're paying for it. I think you could get away years ago before the digital age and not have to, you had the machine in place almost to do the marketing, and people were kind of, they were used to going to the library to get books or going to the bookstore, and the five and dime stores. You'd have stores that have all the paperbacks. So the digital age now has completely turned that on its head. And then fast forward to the social media age in the past 10 years, even apart from ebooks and everything, starting in 2006, 2007, now you've got the social media side where authors have to market their books. That again, you might have the lightning in the bottle that you've got a publisher that has a publicist and has a marketing team and they do the grunt work and you just show up every now and then and look pretty. But that's such the exception to the rule. Even if you're a Jack Carr, use him as our example earlier, that dude, whether you like his books or not, that dude hustles. You don't see him just saying,
Yes.
I'm Jack Carr, buy my books, and then he comes back a year later, which there's some big name authors, that's all you see. You see him pop up on social media right, a month before their book comes out, a couple weeks before, and then a week or two after they're gone again until the next year. And
Right.
that's not a slight at them. That's a great thing. But for most of us, we have to bust our ass every day, sometimes marketing. So the marketing's important. I don't know if I have a time span. I will say for me, the marketing interferes with the writing more times than not, which is my fault, not anyone else's fault. It's me not being able to put this thing down or thinking, oh, I probably should put another post out there. The
Mhm.
key though probably is I don't need to do that. So I do rely heavily on Facebook ads. That's where I do a lot of my marketing. And I think they're working less and less in the last couple of years.
Yes.
Just like I also think social media. I've noticed a noticeable downturn in social media interaction. Definitely in the last year, but I'd probably last 2 or 3 years, where it's kind of like depre diminishing returns, the law of diminishing returns, where, man, before if you put 10 posts out there, you were getting some traction. Now those 10 posts probably won't touch hardly anything. And putting 20 out's not going to solve the problem either. It's just because I think there's a lot more bots. I think there's a lot of other stuff. So the marketing's a hard one. And if you talk to most authors, that's normally the most daunting thing for most authors because it's really difficult to be a really good author, a good editor, a good graphic designer, a good marketer. You can maybe excel in one or two things, but no one excels in all of them. So you have to figure out if you're an indie publisher or an indie author, okay, who can I bring on? And do I have the money to bring on someone to help with publicity or covers or edits or whatever? And that's unfortunately it takes away from our time writing books, which I think I could universally say for most people that got into this, they got into this because they love telling stories. Then they realized pretty quickly, crap, I also have to learn to market or I have to hire someone to market. And it's not the most fun part of the business.
No, no,
I tell you, persistent pays off. Where when I wrote my first World War One fiction, 104, I reached out to the World War One Museum in Kansas City, found out who buys their books. Went through the whole process. It took probably 6 months after the book was out, maybe longer, for them to buy books. Now, when War on the Porch came out, they already pre-ordered the book.
Hmm.
So persistence, pays off. Or Scott, we were talking about, I sold a lot of books in Kroger's in Texas before I moved to Arkansas. I'd be on Saturday, Sunday with a boot with a little table and my books, and I was selling in Kroger, and I was doing quite well. And
Mhm.
meeting the people, meeting your readers is key, and then getting that feedback. Reviews, right? You want reviews to go out when your book hits Amazon. That starts picking up. There's a certain number of reviews where the algorithm picks up and starts promoting it. So there's just, and you learn as you go. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like you learn something, you go, that's cool.
And add one thing too, the nice thing about learning as you go, and I can definitely speak for these two gentlemen that are on this panel with me, is we don't hide secrets from each other.
No.
So if I see Terrence doing something, I can either call Terrence or I can message him, direct message him and say, hey, like, how did you fall into that? Or how does that work? And
Yeah.
Terrence isn't going to reply and be like, figure it out, dude. You're on your
No.
own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's everyone kind of tells their secrets. And that's what and I've made that a thing with, I've talked about it on my podcast, I've talked about it on social media, especially to new authors. I'm still a nobody author. So when people reach out to me with questions, I'm not going to be like, yeah, sorry, I'm not going to give you 5 minutes of my time. I feel like, no, so many people gave me time
Mhm.
that it's an honor to get to the point where someone wants to even hear what I have to say about, hey, this is what I learned. Maybe this will help you. So, and the community is so great for that. And there's always some outliers. There's always some people that maybe don't interact much. And I don't hold that against them. Cool, but I'll just, put them mentally on the list of like, hey, don't reach out to that person with a question because they're probably not going to respond,
Right.
which is it's their prerogative. No big deal. But the core group of what you find, the Travises, the Terrences, Emma Adair, Terrence Leahy, I know is on here.
Mm.
Like these people are amazing people. And that's so, and their successes aren't diminishing anything you've done. You applaud them. You want them to succeed, which is really cool.
Yeah, because I mean, blowing out somebody else's candle isn't going to make yours burn any brighter. And we are, as Eric said earlier, we're not in competition with each other.
Mm.
Even if you have the same kind of book out on the same
Yeah.
day, people read an awful lot of different books. For me, if I've had some authors who were starting out publishing their own stuff and ask me, what do they think that they should spend their money on? For me, it's getting a good editor and formatter, especially if you're going to be publishing an ebook. And the other one is getting a really good cover. And
Yes.
Eric gave me his cover designer, who's awesome, who
Yep.
ended up creating the best book for any cover of any book I've ever published. And he just told me the guy's name and the email address, and then we took it from there. So it's very much a community of people who are usually willing to help each other out, and that's what's great about it.
And
Yeah,
James
I use the same
Zone
one.
gave me
I
that
use the
cover
same
guy.
one.
So
And I use the same
someone
one.
gave me that. Yeah.
The guy's amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. Even if you're a graphic artist, don't don't
Yeah.
do your own cover.
Canva is not a good way to make a cover. I know
No.
sometimes people have to because they don't have any money. I
Yeah.
was very poor for a while. Find a way to beg, steal, and cheat and get a good cover. I mean, just find some way. So
Yeah.
Travis will pay for it. Just hit up Travis.
People ask me what I do,
Scott
and I say I'm a starving artist. So
Scott, since we have you on here, why don't you give your 30-second pitch? I know I'm putting you on the spot. Why don't you tell people a little bit about your books?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, I've written 11 under the name Scott Bell, and it is typically in the action adventure space, although it has some outliers because I'm like a squirrel when it comes to an idea. You know, I'm going to chase it when I see a new idea. Oh, I think I want to write about that. Lately, my recent effort is called Welcome to Cottonmouth. It's published by Blackstone. It's under the name J.S. Bell. And it is about a community of spies who exist and live in retirement in a small East Texas town. And obviously, we have things that happen to them that cause them to sort of reactivate and get back into the life. So, yeah, and I appreciate the fact that I have been with Eric before, and was probably the guest from hell that he was referring to, but but yeah, enjoyed the opportunity. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
and you could check out Book and a Beer where I did his book.
You did that too.
Yep.
Yes, you
Yeah.
did that. Absolutely. What was it? It was a Lone Star, wasn't it? I
Yep.
recall.
Show enough. Show enough.
Good stuff. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. All right, Colleen, can we pull up Rob's first before we go on? Welcome to Cottonmouth. The BTB team loved it. So if you haven't yet, please pick it up. Awesome book. Speaking of books that people loved, Rob's book, Good Looking Ugly, was one of the best books of last year by Teresa Brock, the BTB reviewer. Rob, think you've got a question?
Yeah, Teresa's awesome, by the way. So my biggest fans. But your podcast shows seem to be, I'm just going on what y'all been talking about, mainly interviews, one-on-one interviews. Do y'all ever do anything like specific shows for a craft topic like POV or pacing or anything like that? Or maybe bring on multiple guests to talk about, like, say, a favorite Touchstone book or anything like that?
I haven't. I just find that's probably not my forte to be able to do something like that. Just a panel would be nice. Yeah, I would agree with that. But I kind of just stick to promoting that individual's book or books or whatever they're doing. Even if it's I had a brand specialist on before, or if a person that write children's books. It doesn't, books are books. So no, I haven't done that. Probably just not something that I probably would be comfortable in doing.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I haven't really done it myself. I've had sometimes I'll have two authors on who've written the same book, like Andrews and Wilson or somebody like that. But I haven't really done a lot of panels on my show because I find that most people, when they listen, once you have that brand established, they come to expect a certain thing from that show. And since I haven't done a lot of panels before, I don't know if they would necessarily do it, listen or watch now, but it's something to think about.
Closest I've come, Rob, is I had an editor on several months ago to kind of talk through the editing process, just so that anyone that was listening that was interested in writing or was a writer and looking to establish themselves, kind of what the pitfalls were. But same as them, I have not gone into that type of thing. I wouldn't be against it. Definitely wouldn't be against bringing on a couple people to kind of have a panel like that. I did it last year, and I'll probably do it again this year. I need to reach out to everyone. I've done like a year-end panel where I've brought on multiple authors and we've just kind of talked about like what was your favorite book for the year, you know, memorable stuff, and just kind of almost do a roundup for the year from just some authors that have been guests. But yeah, definitely something I would be open to, because for me, if people are going to spend the time to listen to the podcast, I hope they can get nuggets out of it. So whether it is something like POV or pacing or something, ever do an episode like that, I want them to learn something from the process, not to just spend an hour listening to someone's story. But I've also had a lot of people that their story is fascinating, what they wrote, but also how they got there. So that's normally what I start mine with, is like, I always want to know, because I have a story, you know, like that as well. It's like, why in the world did you become a writer? Like, and if you say because you wanted to, you know, live in Beverly Hills, you're not an intelligent human being, because it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So why are you doing this? So, and you get some amazing answers of people and there's definitely some similarities too, where people, you know, majority of authors you speak to, obviously, they've got stories, they have this creativity, and writing is their outlet. But it's kind of neat to see how that happens and when it happens. Majority of people, and I think I can speak for Travis and Terrence and myself, is you don't typically come out of high school or college and then write a book and get published. It does happen, but it's pretty rare. Normally, you've been married, you've had a career, maybe a second career, maybe a third career, maybe a divorce, maybe this and that. And then you're like, I just want to tell a story. I've had this story in my head for 20 years, or I've written 4 stories on napkins, and over the years I've done this stuff and I've never tried to get something published. And normally those life experiences, maybe it's because you're kind of like maybe a midlife thing where you're like, I want to have something to leave behind that's I can, you know, give to my kids, or even if 5 people read it, I want to do something like this. And that's typically what happens with authors.
It's usually
Yeah, and I would,
confidence issues. You don't have the confidence when you're younger to try that. Most
Yeah,
of them don't. There's some
confidence
people that do.
issues, and also you don't have great point. And the other thing too, I would add to that, is you don't have the life experiences. So I think there's something to be said when you can draw back on decades or years of experience and kind of give your stories just realistic events. I've had someone's reading my second book right now, one of the readers. And just today I had 2 different messages because of kind of this the pop culture references I put in there. I put something to the movie Rush Hour, and then I put something in the movie that tied back to oh crap, what was the other movie? It was an action movie. Oh, The Rock. I had a line in there about The Rock, and they referenced me. They're like, I love that line from The Rock. I'm like, yeah, I hope I don't get sued for that one, but I had to put those couple of words in there. And those then make me happy because someone actually catches. Like, I put a lot of Easter eggs in my stories. When people actually catch them, and they message me, it's like the highlight of the day. It's so cool.
Yeah.
All right, Rob, I'll give you the same opportunity and also putting you on the spot if you want to do a pitch for people to buy.
Well, just the Best American Mystery and Suspense came out this today, 2025, and I have a story in there that the guest editor was Don Winslow, so I was pretty happy about that, and a lot of other great stories in there too, from different writers: James D.F. Hanna, Avi Pachoda, Todd Goldberg, Gary Phillips. There's a lot of great writers in there, so that's something that if you were all interested in that, a lot of good crime stories.
Congratulations.
excellent.
Thanks.
Congratulations, Jeff.
Thanks, Rob. All right, Colleen, if you can pull up somebody called Christina. She's my mom, boy, so be easy.
This point-
Yeah, not on her own. If you can include the rest of the panel. We don't need to give her too much attention.
Like I need you to protect or defend me. Thanks anyway.
It-
I was just
it's-
wondering,
Is it Saint Christina? Because you've got James as a son, so it's Saint Christina, right?
it's
Right.
a blessed mother is what it is. I was a podcaster when podcasting was just streaming on radio. So I've done what you've done for a long time, and I respect all of you for doing it and doing it in your own ways, because that's what makes it worthwhile, is when you do something that no one else is doing. Not necessarily you're doing it, you're putting out the same product, but you do it in your own way, in your own style, and that's what draws people to you. One thing I wondered, because I hear you talk about time. And editing is a big deal, but for me, it was always the prep. So you do strictly authors. When you invite an author to come on your podcast, do you read their books, or do you read them ahead of time, or do you read them at all? Do you do any of that kind of prep work? Because that's a lot.
I typically get stuff from a lot of publicists. I'll get their packet, right? A snippet about the book, and
Right.
sometimes I'll get the book and I'll get it beforehand. I'll gaze through it because I want to pick things out and be able to talk about it intelligently. But I don't have prearranged questions. I just rather be very free flow, and and it's okay to be funny, or it's okay to be not serious all the time, and it's lighten everybody up, even though the book may be kind of dark or whatever. But yeah, I don't do a lot. I try to read a lot of the books from the book and a beer, because I try to theme it with a beer with a book. What, like World War II, what were they drinking in World War II, right? Or what were they drinking in World War I? It's Belgian beer, probably. There's a lot of things I try to do for that.
Yeah, for me, if the book really interests me of the guest, I will read it. But most of the time, I just want to read their 2-sentence bio that they have on Amazon, and then ask them to tell me about the book. And that way, that usually will help me figure out what I want to ask them as the interview goes on, so that it really does feel like a conversation rather than just a PR piece about getting stuff out there. And there's no problem with that. There's plenty of shows that do that. But for me, I just like to let it flow, because it challenges me also to be a good listener and really pay attention to what my guests are saying, which I think the audience appreciates.
Yep.
The good answer would be, of course, I read people's books that come on the show. The truth is, any of them? Have I read any of them? Yes, I have read some of them. It's kind of few and far between these days. Part of it is just because with originally getting published and then starting my own indie thing, trying to put 2 books out a year, full-time job, kids, and it sounds like wow, wow, wow. I do read, and I have a stack of books on my nightstand and frequently pick up and I'll read a couple pages or a chapter. But at this stage in life, to get through a full book happens, but it does not happen frequently. So I normally am just reading stuff. A lot of times it's for research, or it's just something, I might watch a podcast or see something and it's totally like out of left field. It might be a religious book, or it might be like, I have a Graham Hancock book on my bookshelf. He was on Rogan a while ago. And I don't even remember which one it is. So I've been reading through one of his, but it's going to take me like 10 years. It's
Yeah.
fascinating. But after 5 pages, it's on my chest and it's 4 a.m. and I've been sleeping for 3 hours.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's hard to. I one day I look forward to getting back to reading more, in and out of the genre, but I'm not there currently yet. I'm reading, but I'm just not reading as much as I used to.
So
Yeah,
if your goal, let me understand then. So you don't have the time, the ability, all the bandwidth to read the person, and you're doing a podcast every week. It's a lot. It's demanding.
Yeah.
So then how do you figure out, and I understand listening is an art, but when you first get that person in that first 10 minutes of the show and you've got their bio, you've read through it, and you've got a 25-word elevator speech summary of their book, how do you figure out where the deep dive goes if you're really trying to draw that person out and get what you want from them about that book?
for me, I usually try to pay attention to what else they've written. And if they're not a debut author, then I'll go through what the other books are that they published. If they are a debut author, I'll delve into what made you want to do this, and what was it about this particular story that made you want to say, this is going to be where I start my career. Was it
That's good.
happenstance? Was it something else?
Mhm.
Yeah, I look for what inspired the author to write the book, or what life experiences during the conversation, to be able to draw them, because sometimes you have to draw them out of their shell, right?
Mhm.
You almost have to put them in an uncomfortable position to be able to talk about something that they didn't necessarily want to talk about, or how do they? It depends on the book too, but what was their life experiences to be able to write about what they write and make it enjoyable.
I I think I could speak for Terrence and Travis as we both have this innate skill set that we're just so good at doing this that we can just pull it out of the hat, which is a joke. I think it's the interest in people. And for me, I almost always start my podcast after a very brief introduction of kind of like, how did you get there? And once people start telling their story, whether it started in elementary school or college, or hey, I started writing while I was married and the kids were, in the bathtub, or kids went to sleep, whatever the situation is, something they say will normally
Yes.
spurn the next part of the interview. And jokingly say it's an innate skill set, but I've done enough of these episodes over the years that I don't need much to start with. I can pick out stuff from people and and again, having their bio helps. And I definitely do look at it at times that I can pull something out of, but it's just having that ability to be able to read that silly story. So my brother's getting married this coming weekend in Phoenix, and I don't talk to my brother very often, but he's much younger than me. He's like 33, so like 15 years younger than me. And so we're talking, and he goes, last question of like, we're getting ready to get off phone. He goes, hey, one last thing. I was like, yeah, what's up? He goes, do you mind giving a speech at the rehearsal dinner? And I was like, no, sure, whatever. I was like, what do you want me to talk about? I don't know, just talk about growing up. And well, I was gone. I moved out when went to college when he was like 4 years old, and saw him once a year or twice a year for the last 20 plus years. Yeah, cool. Okay. I said, well, how much time do I need? He's like, yeah, 2 to 3 minutes, keep it under 4, keep it kind of brief. He goes, so, write stuff down on a card. I go, yeah. He goes, you're not going to write anything down on the card. I said, no. I said, I'll think about it on the plane. I said, I'll come up with some stories. I took him to Myrtle Beach when he was 16 and brought him to Hooters, and I'll bring up some silly stories of embarrassing
Yeah.
things I did for him. I'll fill the 2, 3 minutes. I'll give a little toast, and that's something that's just easy to do. I just can't figure out how to make millions of dollars on books. That's a hard thing to do. So
Right.
Yeah, well, it's easy when you can torture your family. It makes life more fun, right?
yeah,
But
absolutely.
one of the
All right,
best.
this is not your Q&A.
Okay. But it is
All right.
yours. So thank you for the
Right.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we are trying to wrap this up. So if we can just go through the three, let's go Travis, Terrence, and then Eric. Colleen, and you can take my mom off there if you can, please. If you want to give us an idea of what's up next, or what's out there currently, a little bit of both, so people can go out and buy your books.
Right. So I just had a book come out on the 16th called War on the Porch. It is based on a true character from World War I, and the entire story takes place on my grandparents' porch in Bald Knob, Arkansas in 1968. And this World War I veteran has never told this story because he was told to by General Patton because it's too outrageous. And a World War II veteran is a reporter. If you read 104, it all kind of matches that. Go try to interview him, but he didn't want to talk until he found out he's a World War II veteran and that his father was a World War I but never returned. He was killed and never returned back to the United States. And it starts off this whole healing process that he's been keeping it for 50 years, and the World War II veteran's been keeping something in since World War II. And the love from his mom, his wife, and the character. And I actually do a scene where I recreate how my grandmother made breakfast, because I wanted to bring that in there. And it's a very moving book, but it's very gripping. It's to me, I like writing things like that. And I write it from the perspective of the person doing it, almost, first person.
Mm-hmm. For me, I have a new book out, came out a couple of months ago, called The Twilight Town. It is the first in my Dallas 63 series. It is about 3 corrupt Dallas cops who find themselves embroiled in what ultimately becomes the JFK assassination. It starts from February 1963, goes all the way through the assassination. And right now I'm working on the second book in that series, Tears on a River. So that's taking an awful lot of my time. And I've stepped a little bit back from the podcast, although I have a few in the can that I release once a week. So there's more on the way.
So Terrence and I actually shared book birthdays this summer. So my third book in the Body Man series, Supreme Justice, came out the same day as the Twilight Town. So we got to celebrate that together. So that book is part of the Body Man series, but I take one of the more minor characters and I kind of put the spotlight on Merci de Ato, who is my female assassin in the first two books. It's something I'm trying to do different from probably if I had a traditional publishing deal, they probably wouldn't let me do this. So screw them, I can do what I want. And my readers really like what I'm doing, so far it's working. But I'm kind of taking some of those minor characters and making the books about them. And the fourth book in the series called Downfall, which is alluded to. So Breach of Trust ends, Supreme Justice starts, and I mention it in Supreme Justice. There's a write-up about this. Downfall, the fourth book, is taking place at the same time. So there's events mentioned in Supreme Justice Book 3 that are also going to come back up as big storylines in Book 4, which will be out next summer. At the same time, I've got another series going with the Omega Group, and actually their third book is coming out, I'm hoping in January. I'm really behind. I've not announced anything for that, so I'll give the blurb here where I'm 99% sure the title of that book is going to be Drexel. And why it's Drexel, I'll explain in November when I actually have a cover and I can start promoting it. But I got a lot of editing still to do, so I'll be working on editing tonight. And that's actually a backstory book for Troy Evans, who's the captain of the Omega Group. We go back to, honestly, to 9/11, and Troy is following in his father's footsteps. He's in college, meets a girl, he's in love. He's going to join the FBI like his dad, who was a special agent in charge. He's maybe going to go farther than his dad and maybe be the director. 9/11 happens, and actually Building 7 takes place, and there's stuff dealing with Building 7 that alters Troy's life and puts him on a path to join the U.S. Army instead of the FBI, and people can read that in hopefully January.
Awesome.
Thank
All
you.
right, guys, and all the attendees, thank you very much for being a part of this.
Thank you.
Thanks,
And
guys.
it was
Ladies and
awesome.
gentlemen.
So have a good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
James.
all. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone, for coming.
Thanks, guys.